Welcome back to the channel, this tactical intellectual channel. We are about to examine and go over the second installment of the Emergence of India video series presentation here. And as you can see, it's about India and really the surrounding areas too. And the subject matter is the Negrito person. As you can see, this woman right here. So we're about to dig further beneath the surface of these people and who are they, where they come from, and are they Negroes? So I know that question will come up, but we're definitely going to tackle everything here. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. If you have anything to add in the comment section, add that. But if you want to troll, be intelligent about it, please. But the unintelligent, low-level trolls, just go somewhere else. All right, let's go ahead and kick it off. All right, first things first, let us do a summary of sorts. In the first presentation, part 1 of this Emergence of India series, we went over chapters 5 and 6 of the book Sex and Race by J.A. Rogers. Now, when you look at, let's start at chapter 6, when it was talking about the Chinese right there. It did mention that the first inhabitants of China seem to have been the Negritos, unmixed Negroes with no connection to Africa. But then in the second paragraph, it says that, the Negroid races people at some time, all of the south of India, Indochina. Stop right there. That's all we need from that chapter. Then in chapter 5, and it asks who were the first inhabitants of India. Now it mentions Jufrida Ruggieri. Okay, so he said that the earliest East Indians were the Negritos. So as we look down further, he mentions that there were pre-Dravidians, then another Negro type, the Dravidian, then the Mongolian people. So we're going to examine that before we get to the Mongolians. We're going to look at the Negritos to the Dravidians and everything in between. So we are going to now delve into the book, Harry Johnston's book, The Negro in the New World, pages 26 and 27. So for page 26 and 27 of the book, The Negro in the New World, let's go ahead and dive right into it. Page 26, it says, yet the ancient Negroid elements in these European populations seem to possess slightly more affinity with the Asiatic Negroes or with those of northeastern Africa than with the typical African Negroes or Bushmen of today. Keep that point in mind right here. And it talks about the Asiatic Negroes. In spite of these very interesting discoveries in the Grimaldi caverns, the deductions to be drawn from the rest of our limited knowledge point rather to India as the original birthplace of the Negro subspecies, just as India or Central Asia may have been the evolutionary center of the entire human genus and of the sapien species, and have witnessed the branching off of the straight-haired, hairless-bodied, yellow-skinned Mongolian, who immigrated northwards through Central to Eastern and Hyperborean Asia and to America, and southwards to Malaysia and the Pacific, and perhaps again to America via the Pacific archipelagos. Okay, the only difficulty in adopting the theory that the Negro originated in India is the presumed absence at the present day of any pure Negro type in continental India, though there can be little doubt that the pre-Dravidian tribes of the Nilgiri Hills, the Kota, Kurumba, Irula, and Badaga, and the forest southwest of Madras and of Mysore, Cochin, and Travancore, the Kader, Panayan, Pulaya, Puliar, and Kenayan have a preponderating element of Negro blood. Many of these people are dark colored with kinky or curly hair, are prognathous and flat-nosed with thick everted lips. The Andamanese are Negroes. The Andamanese are Negroes. Okay, so it says that there is no indication as yet that any primitive Negro type entered Ceylon or Ceylon. The Vedas still lingering in that island are not Negroid, but either Proto-Caucasians or modified Australoids, but the Negroid element permeates the low caste or outcast pariah tribes of western and eastern India and penetrates through the coast tribes of southern Persia and, well, to eastern Arabia. Okay, assuming then that the Negro subspecies was originated in the Indian Peninsula, we can, in imagination, see this type of dark-skinned, spiral-haired, flat-nosed man turning eastwards as well as westwards, invading Burma and the Malay Peninsula and archipelago on the heels of the retreating Australoids and securing as their exclusive home the Andaman Islands. They were probably exterminated in the Nicobars by the Mongolians that followed them. To this day, dwarf Negro people survive in the Far East, the Samang in the forests of the Malay Peninsula, and the Ayeta in the Philippine Islands. There are traces of the passage of a Negroid people through Sumatra and Borneo in the island of Timor, and markedly so in New Guinea, though here they have mingled with the Australoid and have produced the well-marked Papuan race. The existing populations of the Solomon Islands of New Ireland and the New Hebrides are much more Negro-like in physical characteristics. In fact, perhaps the people of New Ireland are the most nearly akin to the African Negro of all the Asiatic or Australasian peoples. Asiatic Negroes also seem to have entered Australia from New Guinea and to have passed down the eastern part of that continent till they reached the then peninsula of Tasmania or Tasmania, not, of course, without mingling with the Australoids. There is a Negroid Melanesian element in Fiji and as far west as the Hawaiian archipelago and among the Maoris of New Zealand, in a much less degree also in Burma, Annam, Hainan, Formosa, the Ryukyu Islands, and southern Japan. The Elamites of Mesopotamia appear to have been a Negroid people with kinky hair and to have transmitted this racial type to the what they mean Israelites and Syrians. There is a curliness of the hair together with a Negro eye and forelips in the portraiture of Assyria, which conveys the idea of an evident Negro element in Babylon. Quite probably the very ancient Negro invasion of Mediterranean Europe, of which the skeletons of the Alps Maritimes are vestiges, came from Syria and Asia Minor on its way to Central and Western Europe. Okay, now the last portion, speaking on the Elamites right there, I'm definitely going to use that, this source or this piece of information again, especially when I start speaking on the Near East, the Arabs, the original Arabs, of course, the Shemitic people in general. I'm definitely going to use this piece of information again, so, don't be surprised if you see that, very pertinent to that subject right there. So, just to highlight the visual right here on page 27, you see on the right hand side right there on, say, 28 point, then it's a Kader youth. You see how she looks right there. Then underneath it says Negroid tribe of southern India. Now let's drop down to the bottom left corner right there. Number 29, the Panayan woman. See how she looks? Then it says Negroid Bush tribe of southern India. So let's jump over to page 26 right there. It's funny, man, because not only do we have the admittance or proof that there were ancient Negroid elements in Europe, but then it says the Asiatic Negroes, or the northeastern, or those of northeastern Africa. So I mean, got European type Negroes, then Asiatic Negroes, and of course the African. So we know about the African. But okay, now the proof of that is the Grimaldi caverns. They found skeletal remains of the Grimaldi people. And then excuse me. Okay, and then India was the subspecies of Negro people. Now when it mentions the Mongolian, we're gonna get into that later in other series when it talks about like migration and settlement patterns of different people. But we're not even going to get into the Dravidian people yet. But okay, it's kind of funny because like when you, I guess, hear of stories of India or see television shows or even movies, hardly ever you hear about the element or the aspect of Eastern Ethiopia. You never hear about that. So really, I'm about to dwell on that element and aspect right there, that history and just that subject and topic right there. Now, for those who don't know, when I mention Eastern Ethiopia, the background or the backstory of it is that, the there was a Cushitic empire or reign from East Africa all the way to India and everything in between. Even in the Bible, when you trace everything, this picture always pops up, come to play. There was a lot of migration, there was a lot of mixing and mingling between these people right here, Shemitic and Hamitic people. That's why they look similar today. That's why, you see it even today. India's gene pool is so full of it today. Yeah, so the intermixture is very heavy between Hamitic tribes and Shemitic tribes. So that part of the world, that's why they called it Eastern Ethiopia, because just like we know the concept of the Roman Empire, that one part of the Roman Empire, people zigzag and crisscross all over that empire. The same concept applies when it comes to Eastern Africa, the Cushitic people going over to India, which is the reason why they called it Eastern Ethiopia. So I want to play a really informative video, and I'm definitely going to comment in between, but just check this video out right here.
Hamiti Hebrew Ethics, Priest Teacher Rabbi L.M. Dumizu. We want to talk about the Ethiopian origin of the Tamils or Dravidian Indians. It is very clear that some Ethiopians, Indians, and Tamils have remarkable physical resemblances. You can look and you can find here the images of Ethiopian as well as Tamil and Indian women. You will never be able to distinguish who is who. But what we have to say is that the first people who arrived in India were Negroids. They came from Africa, they had black skin, and they have curly hair. We want to continue with this theme because we come to the point where anthropologists wrecked their brains as they battled to simply identify the Dravidians. The Dravidians here represent the whole group of ancient original indigenous Indians. They then created a new racial group which they named the Mediterranean race. I am reading from one of the authors here who said, overlooking momentarily these cultural acquired exaggerations of nature, we discover first that the Middle Easterners, there was no Middle East, we know that. The people in Middle East were brought in from other parts. They are not indigenous. The majority of the people so-called Middle Easterners, white Arabs, they are not indigenous. We know that they came from via Turkey. Then he says, we discover first that the Middle Easterners do vary in race. Then he says, our area from Morocco to Afghanistan is the homeland and cradle of the Mediterranean race. Mediterraneans are found also in Spain, Portugal, most of Italy, Greece, and the Mediterranean islands. You see there, he never mentioned any African country. Why would he do that? Why use such terms? Very imprecise terms indeed. Such imprecise labels are fashioned by scholars and biased scholars to obscure the obvious racial types or to hide a truth. I'm reminded of Shannon, who termed who gave the word blind. Hence, they completely hide the real origins of many nations. Without an informed knowledge of anthropology, we thus stand academically confused, or worse off, ill-educated, divided, and caused to hate and fail to even morally support our struggling brothers across the earth. That is the reason why they coin such terms. Thus, little knowledge or erroneous knowledge is dangerous, in the sense that this type of knowledge becomes a type of mental blindness and uses a powerful applied psychological suggestion that forms a scholastic paradigm in our brains, and this becomes a base of habitual reasoning in the long-term memory via the suggestion of an interpretation of the concept of race in terms of geographical demarcation and geographical names. This is the reason why we should be very astute when it comes to the original Mediterranean race.
That's exactly why I do this work and have this channel myself, man, because I don't want to be mentally blind to the actual fact, evidence, and just overall knowledge and comprehension of these things right here. Because like the brothers say, little knowledge or erroneous knowledge is dangerous right there. And it is a stronghold, man, because what we're being taught is psychological suggestion that, what would he say, the basis of habitual reasoning and the long-term memory via the suggestion of an interpretation of the concept of race in terms of geographical demarcation. That's something that, you just have to be on top of your game. And like I said, this channel's, and the content on this channel is not for everyone. Not everyone's gonna take the time to look into it and verify it and even check out a video, man. So I had a guy that wanted to debate me in the comment section of my own videos, and I'm like, bro, check out the videos. He's like, I don't have time. And I'm like, well, you think I had time to really debate you in my comment section when the answer's in the videos? Come on, man. That's where we at with this stuff, though. But let's move forward in this video.
Why? A race, when stripped of too many academic decorations and niceties, is identifiable by one essential factor, which is the skin color. That is what we see, and the other features on the face or in the face. Due to this sagacity, we easily distinguish the black race, white race, or yellow race. These three races are easy to distinguish, and in between there is a lot of blending. So, what race are the Dravidians? Subsequently, it is obvious that the so-called Mediterranean race in origin is a Negroid or Africoid race. Why do we say that? Black skin, that's why we say that. And additional characteristics which are precisely those of the black people in general. An elongated skull or dolcephatic jaw or protruding jaw, dark or brown or black skin. You can read Alexander Morris' description of the ancient Mediterraneans. To supplement this definition, the ancient Greeks did not label as white the inhabitants of northwest Africa in their times. That is to say, the present Maghreb, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, since they were called, and since they called them Mauroi or Moors, meaning people of dark skin. Herodotus, so-called Herodotus, writes about the Caucasians, Northeast African people, as black as the Egyptians. So, who or where did the Davidians come from? Ethiopians in antiquity ruled India.
No doubt you heard that tidbit right there. The Ethiopians of antiquity ruled India. That is swept underneath the rug and forgotten about and discarded. Another whatever adjective we want to say, that they don't want to talk about that. Act like it didn't even happen. So let's proceed.
Ethiopians in antiquity ruled India. These Ethiopians were named the Naga. There's a lot of debate around this word Naga. There was an astronomer called Asagan. If you reverse his name, he copies it from there. They also created Sanskrit writing and language. We should prove to you that Sanskrit is an Ethiopian uses an Ethiopian-based alphabet. Ancient Dravidian literature, which dates back to 700 BC, shares a lot about the Naga. The Naga ruled all of India, Sri Lanka, and Burma. They were a warlike people who used the bow, arrow, and nose. You can see there the image there of their migration from Africa. And you can see there the top laughing young lady there is a Naga, is a Dravidian, is an African. There are no two ways about that. The Dravidian Tamils, you can see their images there. This comes from Nosh Denters or Colombo. The Tamil people, or Tamil Tamiz, or Tamil Tamizakao, which is plural, also known as Tamila, Tamilians, or simply Tamils, are a Dravidian ethnic group who speak Tamil as their mother tongue. They trace their ancestry to the Indian state of Tamil Nadu, the Indian Union Territory of Puducherry, or the northern eastern province and Puttalam district of Sri Lanka. Tamil people have a population of approximately 76 million living people around the earth. Thus, they are one of the largest existing ethno-linguistic cultural groups of the people in this modern world. We can't ignore this. They are our brothers. The Tamils comprise over 24.8% of the population in Sri Lanka. The other Sinhalese also derived from some of the people genetically connected to these Dravidians. In 10.8% in Mauritius, 5.9% in India, 5% in Singapore, and approximately 7% in Malaysia. Some tips on their language. Now, according to Dr. Clyde Winters, Naga or Nagash was also the title of king of the ancient Semitic speaking people of modern Ethiopia who lived in Arwe and ancient kingdom in Punt. In addition, the ability of the Ethiopians as sailors is supported by the title Baha Nahash, ruler of the maritime province or Eritrea. You can see there is the image of Naga. There is the image of the Naga. This will become very critical shortly. In many Ethiopian traditions, the first empire was founded by Zas Bes Angabo of the Arwe line, who ruled Ethiopia for 350 years. This dynasty began in 1370 before Common Era. The traditions of this dynasty are in the Kebra Negas or Glory of the Kings. You can read Doris 1971. One more proof about where the Nagas came from. The earliest mention of the Naga appear in the Ramayana. They are also mentioned in the Mahabharata. In the Mahabharata, we discover that the Naga had the capital city in the Deccan and other cities spread between the Jumna and Ganges as early as 1300 before Common Era. The Dravidian classic, the Chiklipta Tikaran, made it clear that the first great kingdom of India was Naganadu.
So that information right there is very interesting. The Nagas and then the Dravidian Tamil people. Now, I'm definitely gonna have to check out the Nagas more, but they do show up and pop up in Indian lore. So the Dravidians, I didn't really want to talk about them right now, but we know that they existed. So I mean, that happens right there. I didn't want to jump ahead, but We know they exist. They will be covered more extensively in presentations down the road. But let's move forward.
Now, the real origin, the real and the original Buddha, was he black or white or not? Buddhism actually started in ancient Africa and spread to the Indian continent, where the first inhabitants were black people who had migrated from Ethiopia some 50,000 years earlier, establishing what is known as the Indus Valley Civilization. The original statues of Buddha clearly show him as a pure Africoid. The wide nose, thick lips, and frizzy nappy hair. These are distinctive African. In most Asian temples throughout Asia, he is shown as jet black. Many Asian temples in Asia and India still have statues of the gods and goddesses who carry these African features, woolly hair or the peppercorn hairstyle, while some even have dreadlocks. Therefore, like their ancestors, the Buddha is portrayed in no uncertain terms with kinky hair, coiled hair, flat nose, and full bull lips. Here are the images of the original Buddha. You can see the Buddha on your screen. These are their images, and you can see also in Cambodia and many other places. African origins of all Asian philosophies is proved here by this image that we are showing. Because if you neglect researching your history, or if you research your history wrongly, without evidence, without knowing what to believe, what to trust, you cannot complain when other races steal that race and use it. We've got two images here of the Sesh meditation pose. You can see here the African one, the ancient Egyptian Sebek M. Inu in Kushite or Kemet. Sesh means scribe or thinker. Meditation pose, the earliest example of which dates to almost 3,000 years in Kemet. Buddha on the left side, there's the Kushite one, the copy one in meditation pose, first appeared 200 BC in India. It came from Africa, which is why Buddha is often shown with peppercorn African hair.
So when it comes to Buddha, I have heard this before, but you can clearly see the links and the connections right there between continental Africa and then India right there. And it makes a lot of sense because once you know the Eastern Africa Cushitic civilizations and the rulers, and then the Eastern Ethiopia, which is India, and then all the interchange of people between Hamitic people and Shemitic people, then it really makes sense, man. So let's see what we have next to look at.
The linguistic similarities. The Naga in India had a writing system which they introduced called Nagari. And Nagari is the name of the Sanskrit script. Over 100 years ago, Sir William Jones pointed out that the ancient Ethiopic and Sanskrit writing are one and the same. You can see there the Ahmaric on your left, and you can see there the traditional Sanskrit on your right. What's the difference there? You can see the A, E, O, U, Eri, Re, Iri. You can see Tata, Tada. You can see all of the similarities there. You don't have to go far. More about the Nagas. The Naga migrated from Kush or Punt, Ethiopia, known in ancient times as Puntites. They were the greatest sailors of the ancient world. We have seen scholars already attesting to that, and by the fact that they are Africans in these lands, attest and proves that. In Kenichu inscription, there are place names like Puntite ports of Otukul, Hameso, and Takaru, which corresponds to Adulis, Hamesen, and Tigwe. Some Sumerian texts prove that Puntites traded with the people of the Indus Valley or Dilman. Researcher S.N. Kramer in the Sumerian, his book, says part of Punt was probably called Methula, and Dilman was probably the ancient name of the Indus Valley. Now, scholastic bias has always distorted our understanding and our knowledge. Writer William Jones has proved beyond reasonable doubt that the Ethiopian origin of Sanskrit is provable. This was supported by the fact that both writings start from the left to right. Also, vowels are annexed to the consonants. Some Eurocentric scholars try to revise everything. The first thing they do is to posit a fact, a false fact, a blind, that Indians taught writing to the Ethiopians. As they do so, they know clearly that the name Nagari for Sanskrit is clearly an Ethiopic word in origin. Over and above this, it is an open fact, that Sanskrit vowels are R, E, U, E, O, for Virama, etc., are in the same order as Jigis language. The Ethiopian script has influenced not only this language but many other writing systems. Y.M. Kobishno in the UNESCO History of Africa maintains that Ethiopic was used as the model for Armenian writing, as was many of the Trans-Caucasian scripts. In Dravidian literature, it is obvious that the Naga introduced the worship of Kali, the serpent, Murugani, and the sun worship, as well as Krishna reverence. It is interesting to note that a god called Murugani is still worshipped by some tribes in East Africa. The other name is Murungu. That's where it comes, or Mulungu. So Krishna and Murugan. Etymologically speaking, the Sanskrit word Krishna means black or dark. At times, it is also translated as attractive or beautiful. Krishna, who was associated with the sun, means black. This is analogous to the meaning of Kunz of the Kushites. Homera, who is Homer, describes Hercules as follows: black his stood as night, his bow and cast, his arrow string for flight. This mention of arrows identifies the Kushites, who were in ancient times known as the greatest bowmen, greatest users of the arrows and the bow. Now, you can see there is, at the top is Krishna, at the bottom is the Naga. The very name Murugani itself, which signifies the young man in Tamil, he is the object of Krishna's assimilation by the Udaya couple. That's what this means. It is interesting to note that they write that while citing the Africanist George Parinda, that at least 25 tribes in East Africa still worship Mulungu as a supreme deity. And like the Dravidian, therefore,
so these linguistic similarities, that is very telling right there. And I like what William Jones said, that the ancient Ethiopic and Sanskrit writings are one and the same. That's interesting right there. Now, that part of the video that had more information on the Nagas, that really reinforces the, I guess, Shemitic and Hamitic relationships. You know, different Shemitic tribes had, I guess, trade ties, and they intermarried the Shemitic or Hamitic people. So they were talking about migration from, I guess, the Kush, Punt, Ethiopian groups right there to the Indus Valley, and it was talking about that Sumerian element right there, where I guess the Hamitic Punt tribes, they set up shop in the Indus Valley right there. And I mean Sumerian people were Hamitic themselves, so I mean, yo, that's real information right there. But like I say, and everyone knows and can vouch for it, they don't even acknowledge that connection right there. So let's go ahead and proceed with the video.
In conclusion, ancient Africa is the source of indigenous peoples of India, the Dravidians and the Tamils. They spread into Ceylon, so-called Sri Lanka today. Ancient Ethiopian priests who still speak a language called Giz have been around on earth and speaking this language for over 4,000 years. Africa, via Ethiopia, once ruled all of India and all the islands that we have discussed before. So before the advent of the Indo-Euro-Aryans, Africans dominated all these areas. The Ethiopians brought language, religion, customs, and culture into these lands with them. The Brahmins, or the priests of the white Aryans, were taught and they learned their ancient language of Sanskrit at the feet of black Ethiopians. Buddhism, Dravidians, all the people in Cambodia, in Sumatra, in India, in Mauritius, we are one people.
So overall, I do think that this was a good video. I mean, he put it together pretty well. The only thing that I would have added is the Negrito element. You know, I think he kind of didn't even mention that obviously right there, but that's something that I think he should have mentioned instead of just speaking on the Dravidian people, because I mean, according to my research, I mean, the Negritos, that element, then I guess the Hamitic element from Africa on top of the Shemitic. I mean, yeah, Negro-Shemitic people, you know, those were the originals right there. Then the Negro Hamitic, and then I mean, you had different tribes and everything, and they kind of mingled together too. So I mean, that's something that you have to factor in for sure. So that's about it for part 2. The link to this video will be in the description. So if you want to see the full uninterrupted version, no commentary, then click on that and enjoy it on his channel. So thanks for giving this a listen to, and hey, that's about it. I'm out. Later.